Sam Hewat sitting alongside Tony Kemp for your Rugby League hour between now and 4 p.m. Lots coming up in the next hour. We are going to continue our season preview going through each team. We're starting in number 9 today from the ladder last year. So we went up from 16 through until 10. We're going from 9 today. We've got another 5 teams to tick off before we finish it next week. Last week before we head into the 2023 NRL season. We had the Warriors launch last night as well. Me and Kemp are going to talk about that very, very shortly. And the last round of trial games over the weekend, which included St Helens up in the north taking down the Penrith Panthers in the Club World Challenge, which is a phenomenal result for them. But just to kick us off straight away, and by the way, bit of space today. We've cleared the schedule of guests to just have a chat on Rugby League. So if you want to give us a call, 0800 150 811, happy to chat anything Rugby League with you, or you can text us on 8833. That is the Temper Bedpost text machine. But Kempy, we were out at the Maritime Room last night in Princess Wharf for the Warriors season launch. All the players in attendance, the CEO, owner, etc. What did you sort of make of...
And a load of celebrities.
And a load of A-class celebrities,
yourself.
including Tony Kemp, who was on both the mic and the camera. What was the vibe like for you last night at a season launch? First time they've been able to do it in 3 years at home.
Oh, look, I think there was a hint of anticipation, but a little bit of energy in the room. Looking forward to, I guess, getting through this next 2 weeks in the season kickoff in Wellington against the Newcastle Knights. Everyone's just waiting to get down there and rip in, and the room felt like that. One of the things I did notice, Sam, because the first time we've been up close and personal with all the players, is how lean they were.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really tell... If there was a big guy, they all look pretty well stripped down. He's definitely done his work in the off-season, Andrew Webster, and bringing his bigger blokes back to a reasonable weight, because he obviously wants them to play longer periods of time. But yeah, I thought it was a really good night. There was a good turnout. There's a good turnout of people. Luke Fang rapped out a new song too, Ukai Paul. And I thought in all, having a chat to a number of them last night and getting some good socials for us here, obviously, the spirit is very high in there at the moment. Yeah,
the vibe was very, very good, very positive. Heard from Mark Robertson, we heard from Cam George, heard from a couple of the players as well. You're right too, when they lined up on the stage, they brought the whole team up on stage. I thought the exact same thing. I thought, man, these guys are looking lean and fit, which is great. So we just hope that, and this is what Andrew Webster did say, that what they've done here in the preseason, the trials, does carry on into the season. That the preseason is so important, isn't it, for sort of whipping you into shape so that you're ready to go come round one. Can't start slow.
Yeah, that's why a number of players didn't play in the Indigenous Māori game. And you have a look at it when obviously all the boys from the World Cup came back. They came back 2 weeks after Christmas, so they're a little bit behind the 8 ball. Mm-hmm. And I thought when you're talking to St Helens and Penrith, that played a little bit into St Helens' hands. But yeah, it's a really good sign. The rule changes that they continually make to speed the game up. I don't know when or how long before they have to say enough's enough. Like we can't make it a small man's game. There needs to be a place for a big man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I'm really interested to see how well that new 10-metre rule goes. How they were going to police it. Obviously, they didn't really need to police it when the Warriors played Melbourne on the weekend down in Christchurch because none of them could hold the ball that long. But all in all, I think he's had a real good look at the team. Andrew Webster. Pretty unfortunate about Metcalf's hamstring, out for 8 weeks. I had a good chat to him last night as well. Good kid, like real good kid. He reminded me of a lot of really good young professionals in my day that you knew were going to kick on. He just said the right thing. He was really focused. And as we saw in that game against West Tigers, he's got some speed too, which is really important around the halfbacks. Yeah,
really exciting and disappointing, like you said, that he is going to face some time on the sidelines. One person you did catch up with last night, amongst many, was Marcelo Montoya, and you had a good little chat to him. It was, of course, in the middle of a season launch, so you'll have to excuse the background champagne clinks and glass clinks and all the chatter. But you had a chat with Marcelo Montoya. We thought we'd bring it to the audience here on Running It Straight.
I'm with the angriest man in the Warriors. Got to say that, bro. You're not the biggest man, but where does all that anger come from?
I wouldn't say that angriest man, but I'd say probably the most energy, I reckon. But I don't know. I guess growing up in a family of three older brothers and being the youngest, there was always a challenge on who was going to run it straight and who was going to feed me. So I guess growing up in a family like that is maybe who I am today. So
You're right about your energy and the way that you attack everything at 100 miles an hour. I love that. Mate, what do you like? Do you think there's another energy that's been brought in this year that's going to join you in doing what you do quite well?
Oh, for sure. I think like every NRL player or any rugby league player, you want to improve every year. And it's been a tough pre-season, but I think I put my best foot forward, and it's probably been one of my best pre-seasons. So I'm definitely looking forward to the year and the squad we have and what we can do. So I'm very excited and I'm very confident. So looking forward to next Friday.
Mate, tell me a little bit about our listeners. I'm trying to give people an insight into the minds of footballers. Back in the old days when I was playing, the banter was quite robust.
Yeah.
Like, what's the banter like in the modern day football?
Oh, the banter's still there for sure. Obviously now there's a lot of young boys coming through, and I know when I came through, I wasn't as young as some of the boys coming through. So when I came through, it was probably a bit more old school in terms of like the older boys and earning your respect kind of thing. And now it's a bit different. I mean, you got to nurture some of these young boys and kind of show them the ropes and teach them the right way, I guess. But at the same time, be stern as well. And obviously, like they got to, I wouldn't say earn the respect, but obviously, respect isn't given, but it's obviously earned over doing things properly and showing respect back as well. But I think the banter's still there. The boys are always trying to laugh and the boys are always spraying each other, so the banter's always healthy.
Just talk to me a little bit about Metcalf and Tamari Martin. 3 tries out there on the left edge.
Yeah.
Bit of depth of the halves. You excited about those guys possibly getting a shot this year?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, it was only a trial, but in saying that, I thought the boys played really well. I thought they had a good combination there. Luke, a bit unfortunate with his hamstring injury, but he'll definitely get a run this year at some stage. But I thought they combined really, really well, and I thought their connection around the ruck there, and when they wanted the ball and when Luke wanted the ball, they were just always moving off the ball. So it's like I said before, it's exciting times.
Marcelo, you strike me as a pretty honest guy. So let's talk defence, okay?
Yeah.
And the defence on the edges has been a bit sort of off in the last couple of years. What do you say to the players around you about how you strengthen that with your voice on the wing?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, you've been around footy for a long time, so you understand how defence works. But I feel like sometimes you can have systems and structures in place, but if you're not communicating under pressure, then it'll fall apart. And that's what footy is, under pressure. You got to make certain decisions and make sometimes decisions that you win a game potentially or lose a game. So and being on the wing nowadays, it's you pretty much can make that happen or make it not happen. So you could win us a game or lose us a game, I guess, in defence. So it's crucial. It's massive. It's very important. So talk is massive, and I'm always trying to drive that communication, but not just driving noise. I want to be making sure I'm driving, constructive communication, not just screaming for the sake of screaming. I'm making sure, I'm communicating with my centre and making sure our back row and our half are talking as well and working together.
Mate, we've had some great centres and wingers play for the club. The Ropati boys, Tia Ropati, Kevin Edel, Richie Blackmore. You got Francis Melly, who you remind me a lot of on the wing.
Sure.
Who do you model your game off?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I reckon as a player, I'm still kind of evolving, and in terms of finding my feet, I know my value as an NRL player, and I know what I can bring, I guess. But now, great question. I guess I don't know. I'm obviously watching a lot of footy. I'm a massive footy fan, and obviously coming from Canterbury Bulldogs, I like to lean a lot on Brett Morris. Brett was an awesome winger, in my opinion, one of the best wingers. I reckon the best winger to ever play the game. In my opinion, just the way he played the game, and I guess we've seen all his awesome tries and what he did as a try scorer, I guess, in attack. But no one sort of talks about how many tries he saved in defence and his work off the ball. So I kind of keep in touch with Brett today as well, and he's been a massive part of where I am today. He's always there to lend a hand, and if I want to have a conversation, he's always there. He's been awesome, but yeah, probably someone like that. Just the way he played the game in terms of the way he defended. Like if you go back and watch his games, the way he tracked off the ball and stuff like that is massive. So, but in saying that too, I guess in terms of the way I want to run the ball is definitely I know I'm a bit smaller than Manu and Francis, but I do want to kind of be a bit aggressive with my carry, but sometimes be smart as well.
You're certainly an aggressive carry, mate. Hey, thanks for talking to us on SENZ. Keep up the good work, and we love watching you play. Your energy is absolutely superb. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
There you go, Marcelo Montoya talking with Kempe last night at the Warriors season launch. Kempe, great, exciting play for the Warriors last year. Really, really stood up. And cool to hear who he models himself off. Brett Morris, of course, who probably is one of the best wingers in the game. So he's impressed you, Marcelo Montoya.
Well, on both sides of the pitch, we've got plenty of energy because you've got Dallin on the other side. And Dallin was probably the player of the year for me last year with the Warriors. So if they can get that question around the defence, and he answered it really well around his centres, his back row and his halves, the four players that play on that left edge that he's normally on. It was about having them all in the right spot because, as we saw again on Sunday, they defended really well in the first half, but they let 24 points in the second half. It's something that Webby will address, no doubt, before they kick off against Newcastle. But he just brings that real positive energy in and around that. I liked what he said about working off the ball, using, and we all had idols that we modelled our game off. Eric Growth was one of my huge idols when I was growing up, watching him play. And to say that Brett Morris, it wasn't about all the great tries that he scored, but was all the work that he did off the football, says a lot about the character of the bloke. Yeah. So, when you're playing on high energy, you do tend to make a number of forced errors because you're always playing at 100 miles an hour. But I think for Montoya, it's really important that he carries that through the season because it helps everyone else out. So
the last trial game there against Melbourne, like you said, pretty impressive first half, went into the break 6-0 up. I think at half-time, though, the Warriors had completed at about 40%, the Storm at 60%. Very, very scrappy game. And then, of course, we had the second half that we did. Never read too much into the trials game, but it feels like we got brought back down to reality just a little bit after the positivity we got out of the Tigers game.
Well, the disappointing part about it, so yes, you're right about trial matches, is that at the half-time sit down in the crunch when the coach gets to talk to you, he would have said that. He said, boys, we're at 40%. We can't really complete anything and mount any pressure. We can't build anything. So this is what I need you to do it when you go out in the second half. And he would have explained what he was looking for, and he would have been really disappointed with what he got. Okay, so I think the reason why I said it was a really good time for that to happen, because now he knows what he has to do before the season kicks off. Because what happened in that game and the messaging at halftime when they didn't go out and delivered is about personnel delivering that message for him. So he spoke to Webby last night about settling on a team. He said most of them are settled, but there's still guys that need to pick them, like I need to pick. And I take from that he's going to pick guys that can deliver for him on the field if he gets put in that situation. 8833 if you want to send a message in for us. You can leave us a comment as well on the Facebook feed and we will pick that up and ask them as the show moves on. Just before we do get to a break though, Kempe, one other storyline from that last pre-season round was, of course, the Panthers going down to St Helens up from the UK in the Super League. And look, the Panthers side on paper was one of the strongest they could have fielded. Of course, there was a few players missing, but overall, the likes of Cleary, Luai, Targo, Brian To'o, Stephen Crichton, James Fisher-Harris, these guys were all, and Isaiah Yeo, these guys are all on the park. What does that, I guess, say to you? Once again, it's a pre-season game, but I think I read somewhere that's the first time that one of the Super League teams has come down and won in Australia. What does it say about maybe where Penrith are at this season, but also the Super League and where those teams are at? Well, at the top, like St Helens is a super club, you know what I mean? So they've won everything over the last 7 years, and to come down here and win that on Australian soil, you got to tip your hat to them. Remember that Phil Gould said that they'd declare at half-time Penrith, they'd be that much better than them. Mate, they weren't. They never won the ruck. Like St Helens won the ruck. They won the points game on them. They got back into the game, Penrith, right at the end, but they calmly kicked that field goal. They had a couple of attempts and calmly kicked that field goal. I thought a couple of the referee decisions against St Helens in that back end of the game were pretty ordinary. But the glaring part that was missing for Penrith was Curacao out of dummy half and Kikau on that left edge. So that left edge did not look threatening, and decision-making out of dummy half for the likes of Fisher Harris. I've never seen Fisher Harris get put on his back so many times, or Leota getting pummeled the way that he did by the St. Helens forwards. So if you're a coach watching that, you're saying, right, okay, that's where we win the game. Fisher Harris, Leota, we stop them too, and then the edges aren't that potent. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think Penrith they'll still be there this year because they got plenty of depth. They still took them to 1 point.
Yeah.
But Carousel and Kikau?
Big losses, yeah, which is what we've been talking about the last few weeks, and certainly showed in that preseason game. Of course, they've lost Taylor May as well for the season, who did an ACL, so that's a big loss for them too. One of their high flyers of 2022. We'll take a short break. Keep the text coming in on 8833. You can give us a call 0800 150 811. We're going to start or restart our season preview as we started last week. We went through teams that finished 16th, 15th, 14th, 13th, and 12th, 11th, 10th, I think we went through last week, and we're going to start at 9th this week, and then we'll finish it off next week. It's running it straight here on SENZ, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Back in a moment. 25 minutes past 3 here on Running It Straight. Sam Hewat alongside Tony Kemp, about to restart our season preview for 2023. Just a couple of texts on the Temper Bedpost text machine, 8833. One from Sean says, Arvo lads, what do you think the refs will be cracking down on in the first couple of rounds? Cheers, let's gone.
10 metres. So they're trying to keep the ruck clean and keep people away from each other so that they bring more attack back into the game. The new rule stipulates that both feet have to be behind the referee, whereas you could put 1 foot behind the referee and get a lead into the speed of the line. Last year, you can't do that no more. So I'm expecting plenty of penalties in the first round.
Yeah, and the scrum as well. So what we saw last season was teams would just break out of the scrum because the only repercussion was 6 again. Well, it was exactly the same as that being the first tackle anyway.
Well, you're not allowed to stop the ball either. So they would stop the ball, they would rush off the line and get a penalty.
Yep.
You can't do that. So,
right. So it's going to be a penalty now with the scrum if early release, or it's going to be a penalty infringement. So
correct.
Change that one up as well. Another one in here from Brian says, Sam and Kempy, are you guys on the backhander to talk the Warriors up, or do you genuinely believe what you were saying? Cheers, Brian.
That's Happy Brian from Christchurch. I'm picking. Look, we're not actually talking football, Brian. We're talking the preparation that Andrew Webster's got them into shape this year, and the feeling of the club, which we haven't had a chance to have a look at them for the last 3 years because they've been looking overseas. I've always said we'll reserve it for the first 6 weeks because I think that you've got to be sitting on the fence to see how it all pans out and whether or not the selections are going to be there for the rest of the year. So we're not bandwagoning the conversation. What we're saying is, I think Andrew Webster's done a good job in the off season.
Yeah, and certainly me and you spoke about this last night. We're definitely not in the camp of thinking the Warriors are going to win the comp this year. It's going to be a slow build. So, but we are excited about what's ahead of us. Keep your texts coming through on 8833, and as well, big shout out to everyone watching on Facebook Live. And you can flick us a message on there if you've got any questions or anything you want to bring up. Kempy and I can discuss. We'll get through one team, I think, before we get to the news at 3:30. And given we finished in 10th last week, we'll go to 9th on the ladder in 2022, and that is the Brisbane Broncos. Coach, of course, by Kevin Walters, and a very disappointing into 2022. Kempy, I remember talking in the commentaries sort of midway to 3/4 through the season when the Broncos were sitting in 4th place. They had been your surprise package for the year. They looked like they were potentially in the running for finals football, although we had a question mark over how long it would last. Adam Reynolds, just brought so much to that Brisbane side, fell off the boil towards the end. I think they got 2 50-point losses as they rounded out the season, and then of course the Raiders win the last game and propel into 8th spot. The Broncos missed out on finals footy, so very disappointing into 2022 for them. What do you see changing in 2023? Got a couple of players coming in, Reece Walsh of course back from the Warriors, but they've lost a couple of key guys as well. What are you predicting for 23?
Look, I think the signing of Martin Tapo in the middle along with Payne Haas to allow him to continue to dominate that middle part of the park is a big sign. Reece Walsh is going to bring a passing game and an electricity to that backline, that young backline that the Broncos have. The issue that I have at the moment is that there's a lot of off-field drama going on through the off-season. We don't need to bring that up on the radio, but whether or not it gives them resilience or puts their mindset somewhere else is the question. And the other thing with the Broncos too is that they always get long turnarounds, so they're always in better shape than a number of teams because of the media deal and the Friday night games and the amount of Friday night games they get. So through the season, and a lot of coaches know this, is we get 7-day turnarounds. They will get 8 days and 9 days on sometimes if they play a Friday, Sunday. So the season is always set up for the Broncos to go well. I like the Broncos. I like the way Kevy Walters is talking about. We're basing it on defence. That's what let us down at the back end of last year. We let too many points in. I think 29 points conceded in 21, 22.9 points conceded last year. So
per game?
It's per game. They've got to get it under 15.
Yep.
You know, if they want to get up the ladder. And I think the signings, Reece Walsh especially, and Martin Taupau, I think that takes them into the 8. I know they finished 9th last year, but I've got them in the 8 this year.
So Reece Walsh, you think is going to make a big impact for them?
I think he's going to, if he can hit the form
They
that he
have
hit
been
at the
missing.
Warriors.
They sort of have been missing that number one, that star number one, the last couple of seasons.
You saw what Tamari Martin did when he came in. Okay, so you saw Tamari Martin came in. He went down with an injury late on in the year, wasn't a part of the side. And when he came in and he brought a passing game into that position that Reynolds released Reynolds, then they went to a different level.
But is that, see, my thing with Tamari Martin, because I thought he did play well, but he was a solid player. He was a solid fullback, almost like that sort of Dylan Edwards role, with nothing flashy, but just sort of did the job. But so I wonder now with the introduction of Reece Walsh, it's going to go one of two ways, right? It's either going to hamper what Aaron Reynolds is going to try and do because it's going to disrupt the back line, or it's going to open up the back line to be exciting and flary, etc. The one thing he'll have to eliminate, which he was guilty of at the Warriors, is all the errors, because I think he led the error count for the entire comp last year.
I think the situation with Reece Walsh at the Warriors, the Reece Walsh at Brisbane is totally different. One, he didn't have a halfback that dominated the middle of the park and when they got the ball. And I'll tell you now, Reynolds will not allow him to do that, so he'll get it when he needs it. And the second part of it, it's not New Zealand, it's Brisbane, it's in his backyard, and he will not act up like the way he was acting up at that final game for the Warriors here on the sideline when he was trying to get back on, if you remember that.
Yep.
So I think we'll see a different Reece Walsh, and what they do miss is they miss a passing game at fullback. The fullbacks that Brisbane have been using haven't been able to pass the ball. They've just been runners.
Yeah.
So, and Tamari Martin added that pass. They went to a different level.
So what do you think in 2023, Kempy? Where have you got them finishing up?
I've got them finishing 8th.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they have the team. They were there last year. They fell off at the back end of the year. I think they're better with Martin Taupau in the middle with Payne Haas.
Yep.
And I think Reece Walsh gives them the points, some more points to win some big games. So I think they sneak into the 8.
I've just got a big question mark over the Broncos, so definitely could see them making the top 8, but I'm putting them in the bracket of the 8, 9, 10, 11 teams that can all be interchangeable. I've said that last week. So I've actually got them in 11th. I've got a couple other teams leapfrogging them, but could definitely see them continue on from last year. But I do have big question marks over, the reintroduction of Reece Walsh, etc. So we'll wait and see. We've got to take a news break here for news, sport and weather. When we come back, we will continue our preview of the 2023 season and these teams. It's running it straight here on SENZ and on Facebook Live, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Running it straight here on SENZ and on our SENZ Facebook page. You can drop us a comment. If you've got any questions, you can text us 8833 or phone 0800 150 811. A question just in here from Dave, which I'm going to ask you very shortly, Kempy. But we're going through all 17 NRL teams for 2023 and giving you our season preview, starting or going from the ladder based on last year. So we're up to number 8 from 2022, and that was the Canberra Raiders, who snuck into the 8 in the last game of the season. Key thing for 2023, Kempy, is they've lost some big names: Josh Hodgson, LM Elliott, Charles Nickel-Klokstad and Ryan Sutton. They haven't made any major gains or signings. Danny Levi up from Huddersfield. Ricky Stewart back in charge again. So the Raiders, what do you think in 2023? I sort of feel like they're one of those teams that they had their moment in the sun 3 or 4 years ago. They didn't quite commit to a full rebuild, and so they're stuck in this middle phase of having a lot of guys there to quality, but not quite having a full 17 or extended squad to push a top 4 in a premiership spot. What do you reckon?
Well, we saw last year that they went on a bit of a run, and Joe Tarpiner was very, very good in the front row with Papali'i, and you had young Xavier Savage at the back that turned it on, and replacing Chance Nickel-Klokstad, who's come to the Warriors. I think that one in the ladder is really going to hurt Ricky Stewart. He found that out when Xavier couldn't play. He hasn't really got cover in that crucial position of a number 1 that needs to run 200 plus metres a game. It's evolved that much, you know what I mean? So. There's some big losses. Josh Hodgson in the hooking spot, Adam Elliott, and the tireless work has gone to the Knights, and Ryan Sutton's headed off to the Bulldogs. They're hard players to replace. You know what I mean? So he's gone for Danny Levi. He's come back from Huddersfield over in England. He's played plenty of football, Danny. You know, he's been around for a long time. So he should be able to get going there and do an adequate job. But I don't think he's built the team enough to really threaten the competition later on this year. I still like Joe Tarpany. I think he's probably the best front rower we have in the competition at the moment. We saw, and he's hit the ground running in that Māori All-Stars game. So, Ricky, I'm picking that probably this will be Ricky's last year.
Yeah, I sort of feel like we're getting to that point with Ricky Stewart and the Raiders. The other thing as well is it's not that the Raiders have a bad side. When I'm sort of thinking about where teams are going to finish, it's not that they have a bad side. It's just you can't, I think, put a side like that on paper up against Penrith, Sydney, and legitimately think that they can beat those teams. So where have you got them finishing in 2023?
I've got them finishing outside the 8. I think they've dropped down a couple of positions and go to 11th.
Yeah, I've got them in 12th, so yeah, not far off you. I agree. I think they were lucky to get into that 8 last year, let's be honest, and Brisbane did sort of blow it. So I think they hover around that sort of, 11, 12 mark. It'd be interesting to see how they get on. The other green team, or the green and red team, and this is one I'm really interested to talk about, Kempy, who finished 7th in 2022, and that is the South Sydney Rabbitohs under Jason Demetrio. This is his second year in charge, of course, in his first year. Got them into the finals, which is fantastic. They have, for my mind, one of the most consistent sides. So they basically they've lost a couple of players, not massive names. They haven't really picked up anyone, but the trio of Latrell Mitchell, Cody Walker, and Damien Cook, that returns for them once again. A pretty solid forward pack. So I think it's an exciting 2023 ahead potentially for the Rabbitohs.
And South Juniors, big club. They're pushing through some really good players, some good young players that can come through and fill the squad. But when you look at around their spine, especially Damien Cook, Walker, Latrell Mitchell, the young half that came in last year, Lears, that did a really good job for them. I think they go to another level this year, especially Latrell Mitchell. He's now at the maturing age of a footballer. Mm-hmm. He's going to be really hard to stop. When he gets going, he gets a few games under his belt. We didn't see the best of him in the Indigenous game, but he was obviously not 100%. But I think if they can keep that spine together, for me, they're the slickest side in the competition. Yep. They can move it from edge to edge. Their handling is absolutely superb, and they can score tries length of the field. They can put long range tries on side. So I think they're there or thereabouts this year, fighting for the title. They're definitely in the top 4. The only thing that lets them down is the errors. They do have a lot of errors by the way that they play. They throw caution to the wind, especially on the edges. Mm-hmm. There's some very cautious passing that goes on. We remember Walker threw the intercept in the final where Crichton scored to get that game for Penrith. And we've seen him throw plenty of passes to Latrell Mitchell and do the same where they scored tries and won games from them. So I'm picking that they kick on again. Cody Walker, he's $1 million 5'8" for me. He's in the top 3. And I think him and Latrell Mitchell will definitely take them into that top 4 this year. Yeah,
so you mentioned the errors, of course. The other one is the discipline, and Latrell Mitchell is the highlight there in terms of missing a lot of games. Does he play in a way like it's Tommy Turbo role in the fact that if he's not in the side, the chances diminish significantly?
Well, they did when he didn't play in the grand final. And I don't think they're as bad as Manly. You know what I mean? But again, you look at Manly on their trial last weekend when they played Sydney City. They didn't have Tommy Turbo, and they carved up. So I think Latrell Mitchell's different to Tommy Turbo, where he isn't going to pick up as many injuries as Tommy. And the difference with Latrell Mitchell is that his passing game is far superior than Tommy Turbo's, and it suits South Sydney's style of play.
Okay, so where do you have the Rabbitohs finishing in 2023? Third. Interesting. I've got them finishing 4th, so I think they do make the top 4, and I think they're very competitive. I think they've got enough to push sides, and we might see what we saw 2 years ago where they're able to upset a Penrith or a Sydney in the preliminary finals and sort of book their spot in a grand final. We will wait and see, but I've got them moving up into 4th. Give us a text on 8833. Let us know what you think. You can give us a call as well, 0800 150 811. We've got a couple more teams we're going to tick off today, so we'll take a short break, come back with those very, very shortly. You're listening to SENZ's Running It Straight on our Facebook Live and here on the radio and on the SENZ app, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Back with more soon. Welcome back into Running It Straight here on SENZ, 3:45. Welcome in if you're watching on the Facebook live stream or listening here on the radio. Text 8833. And one quick one that's just come in here. Kempy from Dave says, question for Kempy. that has always had me confused. When a team is given a penalty, they will often kick it out and only gain around 10 to 20 metres, when gaining 40 metres or more from kicks is not that difficult. Thanks from Dave.
Yeah, Dave, I was just talking to Sam offline then about a conversation I had with Stace last night, because he's the kicking coach down at the Warriors, and there's a couple of average kicks to the sideline from some young players when they came on, and one of them, I reckon, went a metre backwards from the position that he got the penalty, and of course Sean Johnson hit that ball really, really well, but it didn't go out, went way downfield. It's a fine line when you're kicking that in rugby league, because generally the guys, they want to play really quick and they're still huffing and puffing. Mm-hmm. But some guys do it really well, like Nathan Cleary, for instance. When he comes up, he belts their ball. He's consistently making good metres. But then you get a lot of other people that just don't concentrate and lose that concentration in that part, and just take no metres or limited metres just to get the job done. So,
and I don't like that, just to get the job done, because, man, the pressure you can create from if you're on your own, say 40 or 30 or 40, and you're able to kick it all the way down to, say, their 20, you've got a full set of 6 and 20 metres, as opposed to a full set of 6 with 60 metres to go.
Well, the other point I'd like to make about that is that you don't want to have a big kick and start your penalty on the 20-metre line. All right, because the closer you get to the try line, the less they have to go back.
Okay.
So you want to be working back over the 10-metre line to bring them out off the try line, so they have to work back to it. Okay. So if you could imagine, if you had, 5 tackles 2 metres out from the try line, it's too easy to defend. But when you're 10 metres out and you're set, and they have to come up 10 metres before they make a decision, then that's when the defensive lines start to split. So, but when you're coming out of your own red zone and you're kicking down, and you get a penalty on the 30, for instance, and you kick it out and it goes to the 35-metre line as opposed to the halfway line, then that's a poor kick.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's continue our season preview for 2023. We've got 2 more teams to go, and then we'll finish up the rest next Wednesday. So in 6th place in 2022, it was the Sydney Roosters, coached under Trent Barrett. And of course, their story in 2022 was really how well they did, considering all the injuries and the personnel that they lost throughout the year. They've, of course, picked up Brandon Smith, one of the big signings of the off-season, last season. And but they've lost a couple as well. Asosia Tukiaho and Daniel Asolakula Fafita. Sam Verrills as well went off to the Titans. But I think 2023, when you look at squads on paper, Kempi, I think the Roosters have one of the best in the comp. So I think 2023 could be a big year for them.
100%. Brandon Smith coming up from Melbourne is a massive signing for them, especially in that number 9 position. If he can get him fit and playing 80 minutes, I think it's a game changer for the Roosters. I've watched them through the trials. They haven't been trialling that well, but I think they haven't been playing at 100% either. I think they're playing within themselves, waiting for the season to kick off. So that Robinson can do the job. He's been there. He knows how to take them to the finals. They had such a bad run with injuries last year and still finished in 6th position. So they're replacing players that have come in. Matt Lodge, the size, Collins played for Australia. You've got Jared Warrior-Hargraves through that middle, so they've got big blokes through that middle. And then Walker and Carey has to have a big season in those two. So Walker's a young halfback now, has had a couple of seasons in NRL and can play football.
Yep, he can.
Carey has been in and out. So he's had injuries. He hasn't been able to hit some consistency. He's actually getting on to. He's in his 30s now. This is his year. So he needs to have a big season. So for me, the man at the back, Tedesco, is arguably one of the best in the world. You've got Carey and Walker, up and coming and established halves, with Brandon Smith basically the one of the best international hookers in the world. So if they can click, I think that the Sydney City, you put Joey Manu in there.
I was just going to say, World Rugby League Player of the Year, Joseph Manu, thrown in the mix too.
You start throwing Joey Manu in there. You throw Victor Radley. They're big back rowers. Then they start to look pretty mean.
Yep.
So I think they're in for a big year. I've actually got them finishing at the top of the table. Yeah,
I've got them number 1 as well.
Yeah.
The thing with Brandon Smith, though, I think is the key here, Kempi, is we saw at the Rugby League World Cup what happens when they try and keep him on for too long. So we saw that in the game against Australia, where he just did fade off in that last 20 minutes. So probably the key for Trent Barrett and the Roosters is how they are able to manage his workload to get the best out of him in an 80-minute game of football, and how they adjust when he's off the field. Because I'm assuming they're going to put Jake Turpin probably in the number 9 off the bench. So how much does the game plan change when Brandon Smith's not on the field?
Yeah, so you're dead right. It's about using that half-time break wisely, because you can get an extra 10 minutes break there. And what Brandon needs to do is he needs to work really hard to make sure that he can stay on the pitch for 80 minutes. And how Melbourne used him as a hooker and then a middle player, where he could change his energy levels to suit. He has to change and preserve his energy levels to last now.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? So it's not about making those big runs all the time. It's about working as a team over that whole 80 minutes.
Can't forget as well, Melbourne had Harry Grant to call on, or vice versa. They had a pretty good tandem. And we've also, Joseph Suali'i and Daniel Tupou as well on the wings. I mean,
mate, they got strike all over the park.
It's a phenomenal roster. I do have them as number one, Kemp. I think the injuries is going to be the big one. We've got one more team to go. It is the Melbourne Storm. They finished 5th in 2022. What we're going to do is we're going to take one more break, and we will finish the show talking about Melbourne, taking up until the run home comes in at 4 o'clock. Stay with us. Yeah, welcome back into Running It Straight, not far away from 4 o'clock, and then the run home are going to take over. We've got one more team to get through this week before we round it out next week, and it is the Storm, who finished 5th in 2022 coming into the season, and probably, I would say, the most intriguing team of 2023, Kempy, because Craig Bellamy is signed on for one more year. This could be his swan song. They've lost a lot of force and talent. Brandon Smith, Jesse Bromwich, Kenny Bromwich, Felice Kafusi as well. So a lot of pieces pulled out of the puzzle. And then, of course, the big injuries. Ryan Pappenhausen, who I believe this week even shirked at the idea of being ready in about 6 to 8 weeks. So he could be, half a season to 3/4 of the season out. So very, very interesting times in Melbourne, and how, I guess, the team and side's going to evolve. 12 straight years in the NRL finals. Is that going to come to an end, do you think, in 2023, Ken?
No. I still think they're going to be there. You throw the Melbourne Storm to the wolves at your own peril. Bellamy is too good a coach. Their culture is too good a culture for players to go down there and not perform. And I haven't mentioned once this week about Elisa Katoa and the way that he played for Melbourne against his old team, the Warriors. What a loss that big kid is out there on the right. He's slipped into Kafusi's position quite easily and looked really good running onto that ball and scoring that try. So I think, like for like, with that change, I think Brandon Smith is a massive loss coming off the bench in the middle of the pitch, and the seniority in and around the Bromwich brothers and Kafusi leaving, along with Brandon Smith, is what they really miss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when they were completing at 60% at half time, that would never happen with those guys on the football field. They knew when to carry, they knew how to lock a ball up, and they knew how to get to the back end of a set of 6. Pappenhausen and having him out for 8 weeks is always going to be an issue because of the amount of points that he scores and the amount of games that he can win for teams. Harry Grant getting out of dummy half, he still looks really good. Nelson Sefa Solomona playing at number 8, and no, I don't think he's going to sign for Australia. I think he's using that as a ploy to get his contract pushed up by other clubs, because he'll have a number of offers on the table. He'll definitely stay in rugby league. I think they still have the players there to get them through to the semis, but I'm actually going to throw one out. I don't think they make the 4.
No.
I think they make the 8.
Yeah, I've got them in 7th.
Yeah, I've got them the same.
Yeah, I've got them in 7th this year, so they do make the 8, but it could be the end of an era following Bellamy's departure. We've only got about a minute left, Kempy, but who has to step up then into those senior roles this year for them? Obviously, you mentioned the Bromwich boys, and I mean, Brandon Smith has been around for a couple of years here, but Felice Kafusi as well. Who are the guys on the park that are really going to have to take a game by the scruff of the neck and lead that Melbourne team?
I think Harry Grant. You got Munster there. He's signed and sealed. You got Jerome Hughes, so that's fine. But I think Harry Grant is a future Australian captain. So I think he's going to have to step up and play a big part this year.
Okay, well, there you go. That brings us to the top 4 next Wednesday. The top 4 from 2022, how they're going to fare in 2023. We, of course, haven't covered off the Warriors, which we will do as well. And I think we've also got to get through the Redcliffe Dolphins. So still plenty more to come next Wednesday. But that is us for another week here on Running It Straight. Big shout out to everyone watching on Facebook Live. We're hoping to do that each week too, which is a cool little feature. And, of course, a big shout out to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. That's it for me and Kempy. First game not far away in the 2023 NRL season as well. We got live call here across SENZ. The run home up next.